Okay, so I'm going to do this video. It looks like it's going to be a series of them because there's so much content to get through. So this one showed up in social media, had Kuruma written all over it. And on the surface, you know, that's what most people, what I've seen, are judging it as, like a win and a lose situation, like one loss for the groomers, a win for the people with, moral fibre, etc. Yet that's a very superficial understanding of what's really happening here, how we even got to this stage, without understanding the root causes. So that's what this video is aiming to do, to start looking into it a bit deeper. So we're going to go into the actual reason for that. Like that was the story time. I think it was drag queen story time from memory as to what kicked all this off. But we are so far down the well, or the excuse me, or the mine, and the canary's dead, that this is only one of the last remaining bastions of some kind of hope. Yet people don't understand the root cause, so this is going to keep happening. So that's what we're going to take a look at as part of the big picture of what's being done here and how it's all being done, and the lack of responsibility that on an individual level, that's the root cause of why this is even the case. So I'm going to pause and I'll come back shortly. Okay, so we're about to hear the reaction in this criminal web. These are just the face of the criminal web, how they deal with the fact that they've taken a loss. Whether that's set up or not, too hard to know. Whether there's a deeper agenda behind that, that's highly likely. The way that the game plays is you give the people some sense that they have some control, and then they keep that system going that enslaves them. So that's something worth keeping in mind, guys. It's, if you have a look at the pattern of how things work, you get taken a bunch of rights, get taken off you, and then maybe you'll get one tiny win, and then that still gives you hope to keep that system afloat, that there's some chance. So have a real consideration that could be going on as well, guys. Alrighty, and so I need to put this theatre on for you. Remember, I've said this over and over again, that politics is Hollywood for ugly people. So look at it like a theatre. But anyway, we're still going to break down the theatre and take a look at what's actually happening in the theatre.
And to have to rise to make a statement to the House in relation to quite shameful conduct out of the city of Monash.
So he said he's saddened. Usually when you're sad, most times you don't start actually, if you're really, really sad, you don't start hurling accusations about what's shameful and what's not, right? That's a real critical judgment. The purpose of a critical judgment, like that's meant to shame people, is to teach them how to suffer through self-hatred. And then hopefully they'll learn their lesson and not do it again. So straight away, he's inducing violence. Shame is one of the most extreme forms of violence you can induce on the emotional level. And then when you've been emotionally violated, that's what usually happens next after that, is some kind of physical violation. So these people that, are in suits that are supposed to be there in the service of the people, just showing how they actually are there to violate you on levels that most people probably wouldn't even look at.
Last week, and decisions that, very sadly, the CEO and the mayor of that council have had to make in relation to cancelling a number of events.
Now, do they have to make it, or do they choose to make it? A bit of a difference. When you say the word had, it just means that there's no choice there. It's been removed. They didn't get a choice. Whether they could have gone ahead with it all they wanted. They've ignored people in the past, so why are they now deciding to go ahead? So you say they had to. That's like they were forced to. They didn't get an option. You see the way it's all framed. Right, very important use of language, because it shapes ideas and it gets people to believe in realities that don't exist as they are, but just in the mind. So these are very well constructed mind games that are being played here.
That are about celebrating diversity, events that are about sending a message to often some of the most vulnerable people in our Victorian community, that they are loved, they are respected, they are safe, and they are supported by their government and their community.
Okay, so what he's saying is that it's about diversity, these are the things that we value, et cetera, yet at what price? If diversity is forced down your throat when, someone kicks in your door and says, look, I've got all these diverse things that I would like you to actually participate in. And if you don't, I'm going to stick a gun down your mouth until you do. At what cost is diversity, right? Where does the freedom of choice start and begin if you're using diversity as your reason for why it's okay? And who gets to decide for someone else as to what they should accept? right? Especially if it's a very small fringe group. Really important questions to start asking. Okay, so when people frame things in certain ways, if you don't start looking at what's underneath it, right? Because he said, the most vulnerable, well, who could be more vulnerable than, infants from 1 to 6? Like, do they fully understand what's actually happening when they're being delivered information? Are they fully aware? Or do they need their parents' protection and guidance? Isn't that the purpose of why you have a parent, a caregiver, is to be able to, shield you from those things that you may not be ready for? And is this really the time to start showing them something that doesn't exist in nature? Because drag queens, if you look at them, right, if you look at, they really look like it's not appealing on the aesthetic level. There's something that, just on a inner gut, fibrous level, like down to your fibers, that is got a shock value to it. And anything that shocks you actually traumatizes you. Very few people are actually aware that shock and trauma are connected. And so when you look at a drag queen, I know when I've looked at them, if I was a child looking at that would actually scare me, like a clown. Sometimes clowns can scare you. Now, is that a natural thing? Are kids born to look like that? Or is that something that's externally plastered on, like that's artificial? Now, how can one say that they accept an identity that doesn't exist in nature? Because you only get born biologically in 2 ways, right? You're either male or female. Whatever happens in the mind, that's an entirely different construct. Now, have people been influenced by others in the past? That's the question. And how do people get influenced, right? And if you're someone who doesn't feel connected to their environment, if they've not grown up stable, etc., you're more vulnerable to being influenced by others just to get acceptance, just to find a place to belong. And none of that gets looked into as to how this even blew up, right? This whole thing that's even a thing, that there's, different genders, etc. That doesn't get looked into. That, there's no launch of investigation in any of that. So this is just the beginning, guys. There's so much to cover here, but these are just some of the questions that are worth asking. So who's being protected here, right? Is it one group over another? And who makes themselves the final judge on that? Like, where do they get those qualifications from to know what's best for everybody? So that's what's being given to you here. But here's the thing. These people are meant to be public servants in service, not in dictation. This is a very important point, and we're going to cover that in more detail later. And the other thing is, what life values are being supported here? Are the life values, is that a thing to have dictation, things told to you what's right and what's wrong? Is that a life value we all share? Or is that something we want to protect ourselves from someone else telling us, what's right and what's wrong for us? Why do we even have a moral compass if that's the case? If we need to be told what's right and wrong for us, then why did we come endowed with a moral compass? It's a contradictory, right? So it's about understanding fundamentals of how we operate on the base level as individuals who have a capacity to make a free will choice. Now, is that one of the life values that's been supported here? These are the things that are worth thinking about, because it's the right way or the wrong way. But who's deciding that? If you get to put a suit on, are you the arbiter of that? Is that how it works? Because why? You have a title, and we're going to get into what political power is too as well. So this is just the beginning, guys, just to start opening the mind up to what's actually being done here. And this is not about a win, guys. This is about a bigger, deeper underlying issue. So I'm going to leave that one there, and I'm going to come back and do a few more.